Imagine waking up one day and realizing that despite all your efforts, something in your life still feels misaligned. You've been busy, you've been productive, you've followed advice, taken courses, and checked off goals, but deep down, a sense of clarity is missing. Your days are full, but not necessarily fulfilling. That's the space Stephen R. Covey speaks to in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This book doesn't offer surface-level tactics. It offers a complete shift in the way we see the world and operate in it. Covey believed that the way we perceive the world is far more important than what we do. It's about changing the lens through which we see everything. He called this a paradigm shift. Imagine for a moment that you're using a map to get around a city. But what if you're holding a map of Los Angeles while you're walking through New York? No matter how hard you try to be efficient, no matter how fast you move, you'll end up frustrated. That's because your map is wrong. That's the metaphor Covey uses to explain why many people are ineffective. They're trying to be efficient with a flawed understanding of the world and themselves. The 7 habits aren't quick fixes. They're not tricks. They're not about personality techniques or image crafting. They are about character. Covey makes a strong distinction between the personality ethic and the character ethic. The personality ethic focuses on how to appear confident, persuasive, likable. It's about techniques and charm. The character ethic, on the other hand, is about building from the inside out. It focuses on integrity, humility, courage, patience. Covey argues that long-term effectiveness can only come from character ethic. True success, according to Covey, is not a result of manipulating others or controlling outcomes. It's the result of aligning your life with timeless, universal principles like fairness, honesty, responsibility, and service. These aren't religious or cultural ideas. These are natural laws, like gravity. When you build your life on them, it works. When you don't, it eventually falls apart. That's the foundation before we even get to the first habit. It's about understanding that real effectiveness is inside out, not outside in. You change your character first, and then your relationships, productivity, and influence naturally follow. Covey breaks the 7 habits into 3 categories. The first 3 habits lead to what he calls the private victory. This is where you gain control over yourself, your thinking, your decisions, your time. It's about becoming independent. The next 3 habits represent the public victory. These are about interdependence, how to work effectively with others, build trust, create win-win relationships, and communicate on a deeper level. The final habit is about renewal, how to keep growing and avoid burnout. Let's start with the first habit. Habit 1 is be proactive. This is the foundation of everything. Being proactive means you are responsible for your life. Not your parents, not your boss, not your circumstances, you. Most people are reactive. Their mood depends on the weather, on how someone spoke to them, on how traffic was that morning. They live like victims of the world around them. But highly effective people understand that between a stimulus and a response, there is a space. And in that space is your power to choose. Covey tells the powerful story of Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor who lost everything: his family, his freedom, his dignity. But he realized that the one thing no one could take from him was his ability to choose his attitude. Even in a concentration camp, he chose meaning. He chose to be kind. He chose hope. That's the essence of proactivity. Being proactive is about recognizing your responsibility. You are not your moods, you are not your feelings, you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them, capable of choosing your next step. Covey introduces 2 important concepts: the circle of concern and the circle of influence. Your circle of concern includes everything you worry about: world events, the economy, what other people think. Your circle of influence includes the things you can actually do something about: your attitude, your words, your choices, your habits. Reactive people focus on their circle of concern. They get upset about politics, gossip, social media. Proactive people focus on their circle of influence. They work on improving themselves, solving problems, becoming better. And as they do, their circle of influence grows. Their impact expands. Being proactive also means using proactive language. Instead of saying, "I have to go to work," say, "I choose to go to work." Instead of, "He makes me so angry," say, "I'm choosing to feel angry." This isn't just semantics. It's about reclaiming your power. Your words shape your mindset. Your mindset shapes your life. Proactive people are creators, not victims. They act, they don't react. They take initiative. They make things happen. They don't wait to be told what to do. They ask, what can I do? How can I contribute? How can I grow? That's habit 1. It's about owning your life, not in a motivational, temporary way, but in a deep, foundational way. It's about living based on your values, not your feelings. Now let's move to habit 2. Begin with the end in mind. Covey asks you to imagine your funeral. 4 people are going to speak. 1 from your family, 1 from your work, 1 from your community, and 1 from your spiritual or personal life. What do you want them to say about you? What kind of person do you want to be remembered as? This habit is about vision, it's about purpose. It's about deciding what matters most to you, and then living your life in alignment with that. Most people climb the ladder of success, only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. They chase promotions, achievements, money, only to feel empty. Why? Because they never defined success for themselves. They just followed someone else's script. Beginning with the end in mind means you live each day with purpose. You ask, will this decision move me closer to the life I want to live? Will this action align with my values or take me away from them? Covey encourages you to write a personal mission statement. This is your constitution, it's your compass. It helps you navigate life, especially when things get chaotic. A mission statement is not a list of goals. It's a declaration of who you want to be. For example, I want to be a loving father, a compassionate leader, a lifelong learner, a force for good. When you have clarity on who you want to be, decisions become easier. You stop living reactively. You stop saying yes to everything. You stop trying to please everyone. You gain focus. Habit 2 is about mental creation. Everything is created twice. First in your mind, then in reality. If you don't make the first creation, you're at the mercy of others' expectations. You become part of someone else's plan. That's why personal leadership, the ability to lead yourself based on your values, is so important. Now let's move to habit 3. Put first things first. If habit 2 is about deciding what matters most, habit 3 is about actually doing it. This is where discipline comes in. This is where time management meets value alignment. Covey introduces a powerful time management model, the 4 quadrants. Quadrant 1 is urgent and important, crises, deadlines, emergencies. Quadrant 2 is not urgent but important, planning, relationship building, exercise, growth. Quadrant 3 is urgent but not important, interruptions, some emails, many meetings. Quadrant 4 is not urgent and not important, mindless scrolling, binge watching, distractions. Most people live in Quadrant 1 and Quadrant 3. They're always reacting, always putting out fires, always busy, but not always productive. Highly effective people spend most of their time in Quadrant 2. They schedule their values. They prioritize what matters before it becomes a crisis. They make time for things like exercise, learning, connecting with loved ones, and strategic planning. These things don't scream for your attention, but they change your life. Habit 3 also requires you to learn to say no. No to distractions. No to things that don't align with your mission. No to good things so you can say yes to great things. Putting first things first means you lead your life instead of being led by it. It means you manage yourself instead of letting the clock or the inbox manage you. This habit is not about getting more done. It's about getting the right things done, the things that move you toward the person you want to be. The private victory is now complete. Habits 1, 2, and 3 help you become independent. You're in control of your thoughts, your vision, your time. Now you're ready to move into the public victory, into relationships, communication, collaboration. If the first 3 habits help you achieve personal mastery and independence, then the next 3 habits teach you how to collaborate, lead, and thrive with others. Covey calls this the transition from independence to interdependence. This is where real influence begins, and it all starts with habit 4. Think win-win. Most people operate in a win-lose mindset. If I win, you lose. If you win, I lose. It's a scarcity mentality, believing there's only so much success, love, respect, or money to go around. So people compete. They manipulate. They compare. But highly effective people operate from an abundance mindset. They believe there's more than enough to go around. They seek solutions where both parties feel valued, heard, and satisfied. That's win-win. Win-win is not about being nice or avoiding conflict. It's about being courageous and considerate at the same time. It's the balance of empathy and assertiveness. You care deeply about others, but you also stand up for what's right. You seek mutual benefit. Think about it. How often do we enter negotiations, relationships, or even small conversations with a win-lose mindset? Parents with kids, managers with employees, partners in business, spouses in marriage. Win-win thinking challenges that approach. It asks, how can we both win? How can we find a solution that honors both sides? It's not always easy. It requires trust. It requires maturity. But it builds deep, long-term relationships. Win-win is rooted in the idea of an emotional bank account. Every relationship has one. Every time you show respect, keep a promise, listen deeply, you make a deposit. Every time you lie, break trust, ignore someone, you make a withdrawal. When the balance is high, communication is easy. When the balance is low, everything becomes fragile. Win-win relationships thrive on high emotional bank accounts. They're built on trust, and trust is earned, not demanded. Habit 5 continues this theme of trust and connection. It's perhaps one of the most powerful habits of all. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Most people don't listen to understand. They listen to reply. While the other person is talking, they're already preparing their comeback. They interrupt. They give advice. They hijack the conversation with their own story. But highly effective people practice empathic listening. That means listening with the intent to truly understand, not to fix or respond. It means stepping into the other person's shoes, feeling what they feel, seeing the world through their eyes. Covey says that empathic listening is not about agreeing. It's about deeply understanding. And when people feel understood, they open up. They relax. They trust you. Think about the last time someone truly listened to you. Not just nodded while checking their phone, but really listened. How did it make you feel? Safe, valued, seen. That's the power of Habit 5. It transforms communication. Covey outlines 5 levels of listening. The lowest is ignoring. Then comes pretending. Then selective listening. Then attentive listening. But the highest form is empathic listening. This means listening not just with your ears, but with your eyes and heart. Watching body language. Noticing tone. Feeling the emotion behind the words. Once you've understood the other person, really understood them, then and only then should you try to be understood. And when you do speak, you do so with clarity, respect, and integrity. Habit 5 isn't just for personal conversations. It's powerful in business, negotiation, leadership. People are starving to be understood. When you offer that, you stand out. You gain influence. You build loyalty. Now we move to Habit 6, synergize. This is where magic happens. Synergy means that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. 1 + 1 = 3 or more. It's not just cooperation. It's creative collaboration. It's what happens when people with different strengths, backgrounds, and perspectives come together, not to compete, but to co-create. Most people are afraid of differences. We tend to surround ourselves with people who think like us, look like us, agree with us. But highly effective people value differences. They see them as strengths, not threats. Synergy requires humility. It requires openness. It requires you to let go of control and embrace the unknown. It's the willingness to say, I don't have all the answers. Let's figure it out together. Covey shares a beautiful metaphor. He says that when you cut down a tree and count the rings are thick in years of good weather and thin in years of drought. In the same way, people grow stronger through struggle, conflict, and diversity, when handled with respect. Synergy often comes from conflict. Two people disagree. They wrestle with ideas. They debate. But instead of attacking each other, they attack the problem. And through that tension, a third alternative emerges, one that neither of them could have created alone. That's synergy. You don't settle for compromise. You aim for transformation. You move from either or to both and. You move from my way or your way to our way. Synergy is not just a corporate buzzword, it's a way of living. In families, it means honoring each person's uniqueness. In teams, it means leveraging strengths instead of hiding weaknesses. In communities, it means celebrating diversity. Habit 6 is where real unity begins, not uniformity, but unity through diversity. And now we arrive at the final habit. Habit 7, sharpen the saw. Imagine someone trying to cut down a tree with a dull saw. They're sweating, struggling, getting nowhere. You say, "Why don't you sharpen the saw?" They say, "I don't have time, I'm too busy cutting." Sounds ridiculous, right? But that's how most of us live. We're so busy doing, achieving, producing, that we forget to renew ourselves. Habit 7 is about self-renewal. It's about preserving and enhancing your greatest asset, you. Covey breaks this habit into 4 dimensions: physical, mental, emotional, social, and spiritual. The physical dimension is about exercise, nutrition, sleep. It's about honoring your body, moving regularly, fueling yourself with good food, getting rest. If your body breaks down, everything else suffers. The mental dimension is about learning, reading, writing, thinking. It's about feeding your mind with good ideas, challenging yourself intellectually, avoiding the mental junk food of constant distraction. The emotional social dimension is about relationships, empathy, love, connection. It's about spending time with people who uplift you, practicing kindness, resolving conflicts, building community. And the spiritual dimension is about purpose, values, meditation, faith. It's about connecting with something larger than yourself. For some, it's God. For others, it's nature, art, or service. Whatever it is, it grounds you. It gives you direction. Sharpening the saw is not selfish. It's how you maintain effectiveness. If you burn out, you help no one. If you're depleted, you can't serve. Taking care of yourself is an act of responsibility. Covey emphasizes that renewal in one area affects all others. When you exercise regularly, you think more clearly. When you meditate, your relationships improve. When you read, you feel inspired. When you serve others, your spirit grows. Habit 7 is what makes the other 6 habits sustainable. It's the habit of continuous growth. It keeps you balanced, fresh, evolving. It ensures you don't just become effective, you stay effective, and so we come full circle. The 7 habits are not a checklist. They're not a one-time project. They are a lifelong journey, a way of being, a roadmap for personal and professional excellence. Let's recap them briefly. Habit 1. Be proactive. Take responsibility for your life. You're not a victim, you're a creator. Habit 2. Begin with the end in mind. Know your values, define your purpose. Let your vision guide your actions. Habit 3. Put first things first. Prioritize what truly matters. Say no to distractions. Live intentionally. Habit 4. Think win-win. Seek mutual benefit in all interactions. Believe in abundance. Build trust. Habit 5. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Listen with empathy. Communicate with clarity. Connect deeply. Habit 6. Synergize. Embrace diversity. Collaborate creatively. Find the third alternative. Habit 7. Sharpen the saw. Renew yourself regularly. Grow in body, mind, heart, and spirit. These habits build on each other. They create a framework for living with integrity, clarity, and power. They help you become not just successful but significant, not just efficient but fulfilled. Covey reminds us that we are not human beings on a spiritual journey. We are spiritual beings on a human journey. The 7 habits help us navigate that journey with wisdom. They teach us that real effectiveness is not about getting ahead at all costs. It's about living in harmony with principles that never change. As you reflect on these habits, ask yourself, where do I begin? Which habit do I need to strengthen? Which one have I been neglecting? Change doesn't happen overnight, but it begins with a decision to live consciously, to lead yourself, to grow, to contribute. The 7 habits offer more than strategies. They offer a path, a way forward, a way up, a way in. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing to examine yourself, willing to take responsibility, willing to practice. And with time, these habits become more than actions. They become part of who you are. That is the promise of Stephen R. Covey's timeless work, that effectiveness is not a destination. It's a lifestyle, a lifelong commitment to growth, to contribution, to character. And that's what truly makes someone great. Let's now dive deeper into how each of these habits actually shows up in real life, how they play out in daily decisions, small actions, and pivotal moments. Because theory is one thing, but living the habits, that's what makes them transformative. Let's return to habit 1. Be proactive. It's easy to misunderstand this habit as just being aggressive or constantly on the move. But being proactive is not about doing more. It's about choosing better. It's about acting from values instead of reacting from moods. Picture two people stuck in traffic. One is honking, yelling, stressed. The other is calm, listening to an audiobook, using the time wisely. Same situation, different choices. That's proactivity in action. Covey tells us that between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose, and in our choice lies our growth and our freedom. That's one of the most profound teachings in the book. You're not your circumstances, you're not your past, you're not your emotions, you are your decisions. And every decision shapes your destiny. It might be tempting to blame your boss, your spouse, the economy, or your childhood. But highly effective people don't waste energy on blame. They focus on what they can control. Their attitude, their effort, their response, that's the core of habit 1. And when you live that way consistently, something changes. You stop feeling like a victim of life and start feeling like a creator of it. Your sense of power grows. Your confidence expands. You become the kind of person others respect and rely on. Now let's revisit habit 2. Begin with the end in mind. This habit invites you to zoom out and look at the big picture. It asks, what kind of person do you want to be? What legacy do you want to leave? What will matter when it's all said and done? Covey offers a powerful exercise. He asks you to imagine attending your own funeral. 4 people will speak: a family member, a friend, a coworker, and someone from your community. What do you want them to say about you? What kind of spouse, parent, colleague, and citizen do you want to be remembered as? That visualization cuts through the noise. It helps you clarify your deepest values. And once your values are clear, decisions become easier. You start saying no to things that don't align. You stop chasing success that feels empty. You live with intention. For example, if you realize that kindness is a core value, you'll treat people differently. If you realize that creativity matters deeply to you, you'll find ways to express it. If you value contribution, you'll seek opportunities to serve. That's the power of beginning with the end in mind. It turns your life into a mission, not a reaction. It gives you a personal compass in a chaotic world. You don't just drift, you steer. That brings us to habit 3. Put first things first. This is where your values become your schedule. This is the habit of discipline, of prioritizing what's important over what's urgent. It's easy to be busy. Emails, meetings, errands, notifications. But busyness is not effectiveness. Effective people focus on quadrant 2 activities, things that are important but not urgent, like exercising, planning, deep work, quality time with loved ones, reading, resting. These things don't scream for attention, but they build the foundation of a great life. Most people live in quadrant 1, important and urgent. They're always in crisis mode, putting out fires. Or they waste time in quadrant 1, neither important nor urgent. Scrolling, binging, numbing. But quadrant 2, that's where real growth happens. Covey encourages us to plan weekly, not daily, because daily planning often focuses on urgency. Weekly planning helps you align with your roles and goals. You ask yourself, what are the most important things I can do this week to move toward my mission? Then you schedule those first. The rest fills in. This is how you start living by design, not by default. You become less reactive, more intentional, less scattered, more focused. And over time, that creates massive results. Habit 3 is where success becomes visible. It's where dreams turn into actions, where intention becomes reality. Now let's look at habit 4. Think win-win. This habit transforms how we approach relationships. In a world obsessed with competition, it invites us into cooperation. In a culture of scarcity, it calls us into abundance. Win-win is not about being soft or giving in. It's about seeking solutions where everyone benefits. It's the mindset of both courage and consideration. Imagine 2 business partners negotiating a deal. One pushes for every advantage, trying to squeeze the other. The deal goes through, but trust is broken. Future collaboration becomes difficult. Now imagine the same partners, but with a win-win mindset. They look for a structure that honors both their interests. The deal is fair, the relationship is strong, and future opportunities blossom. That's win-win. It's long-term thinking. It's relational intelligence. It's maturity in action. Win-win doesn't mean everyone gets exactly what they want. It means everyone walks away feeling respected and valued. Sometimes it takes creativity. Sometimes it takes time. But it always builds trust. And trust is the currency of influence. Covey reminds us that relationships are like emotional bank accounts. Every act of kindness, honesty, empathy is a deposit. Every act of betrayal, neglect, or disrespect is a withdrawal. High-trust relationships have large balances. You can make mistakes, and the relationship survives. Low-trust relationships are fragile. One mistake and everything shatters. Win-win thinking fills those accounts. It creates psychological safety. It fosters collaboration. It strengthens families, teams, communities. It's a habit that makes you not just effective, but beloved. Now we turn to habit 5. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. If there's one habit that could transform the world overnight, it's this one. Most conflicts don't come from bad intentions. They come from feeling unheard. People don't need you to agree with them. They need you to understand them. Empathic listening is a superpower. It's the ability to make someone feel seen, heard, and safe, and it's rare. Most people listen with the intent to reply. They interrupt, judge, fix, offer advice. But highly effective people listen with the intent to understand. They give space. They mirror emotions. They ask clarifying questions. They validate feelings. And when they finally speak, their words carry weight, because they've earned the right to be heard. This habit is especially powerful in parenting. Children often act out because they don't feel understood. A parent who listens deeply can de-escalate a tantrum, unlock trust, and shape a child's heart. In leadership, empathic listening builds loyalty. In marriage, it builds intimacy. In conflict, it builds bridges. It's not always easy. It takes patience. It takes humility. It takes putting your ego aside. But it's worth it. Because when people feel truly understood, they soften, they open, they connect. Habit 5 is not just about better communication, it's about deeper connection. It's about honoring the humanity in others. And that changes everything. Habit 6. Synergize is the natural outcome of the first 5 habits. When you're proactive, guided by values, disciplined with time, committed to mutual benefit, and skilled at deep listening, synergy becomes possible. Synergy is not just working together, it's creating something new together. It's the spark that happens when different minds come together in a spirit of respect and creativity. It's not compromise. Compromise says, let's both give something up. Synergy says, let's both gain something better. Think of a jazz band. Each musician brings their own voice, but together they create a sound no one could produce alone. That's synergy. In families, synergy looks like celebrating each person's uniqueness. In teams, it looks like building on each other's strengths. In society, it looks like finding common ground across differences. It starts with valuing differences. Most people fear what's different. But highly effective people see difference as a resource. They know that tension, when handled well, leads to innovation. Synergy takes effort. It requires letting go of control. It requires curiosity, openness, and trust. But the results are exponential. Problems get solved faster. Ideas become richer. Relationships deepen. Synergy is where real breakthroughs happen. And finally, we return to habit 7, sharpen the saw. This habit is the key to sustaining all the others. It's about renewal, recharging, realigning. In a world that glorifies hustle, this habit reminds us that rest is productive, that self-care is not selfish, that growth requires margin. Covey encourages us to sharpen the saw in 4 areas: physical, mental, emotional, social, and spiritual. Physically, it means moving your body, eating well, sleeping enough. Mentally, it means reading, learning, reflecting. Emotionally and socially, it means nurturing relationships, practicing gratitude, seeking joy. Spiritually, it means connecting with purpose, meditating, praying, spending time in nature. Whatever fills your soul. The key is balance. If you neglect any area, the others suffer. You might be successful at work but burned out physically, or spiritually alive but disconnected emotionally. Sharpening the saw is about wholeness. It's about becoming a well-rounded human being. It's about living with depth, not just height. The 7 habits work best when they work together. They're not isolated practices, they're an integrated lifestyle, a way of being. As you live them, they reinforce each other. Being proactive helps you put first things first. Seeking to understand helps you synergize. Sharpening the saw fuels all the others. The journey of the 7 habits is not linear, it's a spiral. You keep coming back to them, deeper each time. With each pass you grow, you become more aware, more intentional, more effective, and ultimately, more fulfilled. The more you live the 7 habits, the more you begin to notice how they intertwine with the way life naturally works. You start realizing that effectiveness isn't about flashy shortcuts or temporary tricks. It's about aligning with principles that have always existed, truths that are rooted in how humans grow, connect, and thrive. At this stage, it's important to reflect on what Covey called the inside-out approach. This idea is the foundation of the entire book. The inside-out approach means that lasting change begins within you, not outside you. You don't become effective by changing your environment, your job, or your circumstances first. You become effective by changing your character, your mindset, and your habits. That's why the book doesn't start with strategies for managing others or manipulating outcomes. It starts with being proactive, with self-awareness, with vision. Because leadership is not a technique. It's a reflection of who you are. Covey emphasizes that private victories precede public victories. You can't expect to lead others well if you can't lead yourself. You can't expect strong relationships if you're reactive, unclear about your values, and distracted by urgency. So the first 3 habits, being proactive, beginning with the end in mind, and putting first things first, are about mastering yourself. They're the foundation, the roots of the tree. Once that foundation is solid, you move to interdependence, building strong, respectful, synergistic relationships. That's where habits 4, 5, and 6 come in. Thinking win-win, seeking first to understand, and synergizing. These aren't just social skills. They are character-based habits that grow from a deep sense of security and maturity. And then comes habit 7, sharpening the saw, which is both personal and relational. It renews you in every area of life and ensures that your growth doesn't become stagnant. Let's zoom in even more and bring these habits into specific life roles. Think about your role as a parent. Being proactive as a parent means not just reacting emotionally when your child misbehaves, but choosing how to respond in a way that aligns with your values. Beginning with the end in mind as a parent means asking, what kind of adult do I want my child to become? That vision influences how you discipline, how you encourage, how you spend time with them. Putting first things first as a parent means prioritizing time with your children over meaningless busyness. It means showing up fully when you're with them. Thinking win-win means not using power to control, but finding ways to help both you and your child feel heard and respected. Seeking first to understand becomes the most powerful tool you have when your teenager shuts down or acts out. And synergizing means embracing each child's uniqueness and creating a family culture where everyone contributes. Sharpening the saw means modeling healthy self-care so your children grow up knowing that it's okay to rest, reflect, and grow. Now apply the same habits to your professional life. Being proactive at work might mean taking ownership of a project without being asked. It might mean choosing positivity in a toxic environment. Beginning with the end in mind at work means knowing your long-term goals and aligning your daily actions accordingly. Putting first things first means not getting lost in emails all day, but focusing on what moves the needle. Thinking win-win in a negotiation means you don't just aim to win, but aim to build a partnership that benefits both sides. Seeking first to understand in meetings leads to better ideas and fewer misunderstandings. Synergizing with your team means you welcome diverse perspectives, even if they challenge you. Sharpening the saw means you continue learning, improving, and taking care of your mental and emotional health so you don't burn out. Now consider your role as a friend, a spouse, a community member. These same habits shape how you show up in every relationship. They're not techniques, they're not hacks. They're ways of being that, when lived authentically, make you more trustworthy, more grounded, and more impactful. One of the key messages in Covey's work is the concept of the maturity continuum. This continuum moves from dependence to independence to interdependence. Most people begin life dependent on others. As children, we rely on our parents for everything. As we grow, we aim for independence, to stand on our own, make our own choices. But the highest level of maturity is interdependence. Not being needy or self-reliant, but being strong enough to collaborate and build rich, mutually beneficial relationships. The first 3 habits help you move from dependence to independence. The next 3 help you move from independence to interdependence. The final habit sustains growth at every stage. And the beauty of this framework is that it's not rigid. You can revisit these habits over and over. As life changes, You deepen your understanding and your practice. For example, being proactive might mean one thing in your 20s and something much deeper in your 40s. Seeking to understand might be surface-level listening at first, but later evolve into powerful, intuitive empathy. The habits grow as you grow, and the more you live them, the more natural they become. What once felt like effort becomes instinct. You start thinking before reacting. You start prioritizing without guilt. You start listening without needing to fix. And people notice. You become a person others admire, trust, and want to follow. Now let's take a moment to reflect on the power of paradigms. Another major idea from the book. A paradigm is simply the way you see the world, your mental map. If your paradigm is flawed, your effectiveness will suffer no matter how hard you work. For example, if your paradigm says, people can't be trusted, then no matter how well you communicate, your relationships will be limited. If your paradigm says, I'm a victim, then no matter what tools you learn, you'll feel powerless. The 7 habits are not just new behaviors, they are paradigm shifts. They invite you to see the world differently, to move from scarcity to abundance, from control to collaboration, from urgency to importance, from outside in to inside out. These shifts are what make the habits sustainable. Without a shift in how you see yourself and others, the habits become mechanical. But with a shift in paradigm, they become alive. They become part of who you are. Let's talk briefly about the difference between personality ethics and character ethics. This is one of the most overlooked yet powerful insights from Covey's work. In the early 20th century, success literature focused on character, on integrity, humility, courage, and discipline. But later, the focus shifted toward personality, charm, image, techniques. Covey argues that long-term effectiveness is rooted in character, not personality. You might impress people temporarily with charisma, but you earn their trust with integrity. You might influence outcomes with persuasion, but you change lives with principle. The 7 habits are built on character ethics. They don't teach you how to look successful. They teach you how to be effective from the inside out. This is why the book has endured for decades. It's not trendy. It's timeless. As we wrap up this summary, let's revisit the habits one final time, but this time as affirmations. Imagine adopting them as your identity. I am proactive. I choose my response. I take responsibility. I am not a victim. I begin with the end in mind. I live with purpose. I know what matters most. I put first things first. I act on priorities. I lead my life. I think win-win. I seek mutual benefit. I believe in abundance. I seek first to understand, then to be understood. I listen with empathy. I speak with clarity. I synergize. I value differences. I build better solutions. I sharpen the saw. I renew myself. I grow continuously. Let these affirmations settle into your mindset. Let them guide your actions. Let them shape your legacy. Because effectiveness is not a destination. It's a daily decision. It's not about being perfect. It's about being intentional. Every day you get the chance to choose your response, to choose your priorities, to choose your values, to choose connection, to choose growth. And every choice becomes a thread in the fabric of your life. In the end, the 7 habits are not about doing more. They're about becoming more aware, more focused, more compassionate, more aligned, more human. And as you become more, your influence expands, your relationships deepen, your results improve. Your life becomes not just successful but significant. That's the promise of these habits. That's the invitation. And that's the journey. It begins with a choice. One habit, one day, one moment at a time. So start today. Start with habit 1. Take responsibility. Own your power. Then build from there. Your best life isn't somewhere out there. It's waiting in your next decision. You're not just living habits. You're creating a legacy. And that's what highly effective people do.